fabulous.
Fabulous. That sounds like it needs some additional. Tell me more about that, please.
I worked with Rose this week and I got a first list from Luth today.
Awesome. Awesome. You
So,
excited for your day?
well, I'm going to sign up for Mojo Dialer and we'll see what happens.
All right. Well, I one thing is for sure is the more conversations that you have, the more appointments you will have, and the more appointments you have, the more closings you will have, and the more closings you will have, the more families you can impact. So I went I don't think Rose is here yet. Um, went back and watched the interview that Rose and I did a week or so ago, and there's a number of really good nuggets in there. One of the things she said was it's all about contacts. It's all about contacts, right? And contacts doesn't have to be cold calling strangers. Contacts could be interacting with your neighbors, your peers, your friends from church. It's simply all about the more conversations that you have, the more opportunities you'll have to help. Okay. I'm excited for you. It's as Rose says, it's game changing. Even if you decide after a week that you hate it, and you never want to do it again, you know that it's possible, and you just kind of have a bit of a different approach around the business. So I would encourage everyone to watch or to listen or to shadow or obviously to do it. You will learn a ton, and more opportunities will come your way. Tawantis, I mean, your business is like unrecognizable, isn't it?
Yes, it's going great. Hey, everybody. I'm actually excited about, just the path and the course and just staying consistent and doing what we have to do. So,
I am talking about in short, the more contacts that you make, the more opportunities and closings and income and impact you will be able to make. All comes down to conversations. Again, doesn't have to be
right.
strangers. It's just humans. Every human needs a place to live, and we got an opportunity to help them find a rental, help them find a investment, or help them find the family home, right? Okay, let's do a little scheduling recap, and I'll kind of put together, put a bow on a lot of our work this week. Okay, so first of all, I hung out with Sam for a bit yesterday, and we are going to do the success series with Sam today from 12 to 1. It will be recorded, and I'll upload it before the weekend. And we're going to focus on, we're going to talk pretty much all about command, and then particularly going to focus on the neighborhood nurture. So I would say there's probably and the mobile app. Okay, there's probably two primary tools from a technology perspective that are really good for sharing and delivering value. And oftentimes you can, a bit of a strange way of saying it, but basically barter your app or your ability to provide a neighborhood nurture for the missing piece of contact information that you might not have. So for example, let's say you have you meet somebody in an open house, or you're reconnecting with somebody from LinkedIn or something like that, and you don't have their cell or you don't have their mailing address or something like that. You can say, hey, if this is a great piece of technology and I simply need your mailing address, and I can send this to you every 2 weeks or every month, and it'll give you an update on the trends and the actives and pendings and closings, so you can get a better idea of your home's value. Would that be helpful? I mean, if they're listening, they're going to say, yes, that would be helpful, right? So Sam's going to go through a lot of that. Number one, the mechanics of how to set it up, what it does, how to start it, how to edit it. That'll all be today. And again, it will be recorded if you can't make it, and it'll be available before the weekend. We're going to do a short launch mastermind from 1 to 1:30 today, 1 to 1:30 today, right after. And I am the instructor for the 3612 3 class today, which is on for sale by owners and expired listings. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about it's kind of a bit of a 30,000 foot view to kind of understand how to approach them, how to systematize your communication with them, how to a list of a number of the different offering pieces that you can volunteer to a FSBO or to expired. And there's some really great scripts in the both the FSBO kind of segment of the presentation and the expired segment. So I think that I have the authority to say kwroswelltraining.com from 1:30 to 3:30. It will be recorded and it'll be streamed on Facebook. And I'd love for you to be my guest, even if you've not enrolled in 3612.3, or even if you don't know what I'm talking about, or even if you were there and are not there now. Okay, 1:30 to 3:30 on for sale by owners and expired listings. Okay, that will be not in this stream. That'll be on kwroswelltraining.com. Okay. And then who was I talking about this last night? Venus, what's that class? There's a contracts class today too, right? What time is that at? You're on mute.
I want to say it's with Kern at 11:30, but let me double check.
I think it's at 11.
It's at 11 with Kern.
Okay, perfect. Victoria, thank you. Venus, thank you. That is on kwroswelltraining.com too. So lots of training opportunities today. Kern session should be streamed on Facebook as well. That is a contracts class. Every time
at 10:30 to 11:30.
10:30 to 11:30. Thank you. Yes, Greta.
I'm having a difficult time. Like, I've tried to get on Facebook. I don't understand. I'm confused about, like, some stuff is on like the PC wherever, and some stuff is on Facebook. And honestly, I've never been able to find anything. I've never done like a live stream. I've never like looked up. It's not. How do you do that? Okay,
so first of all, you can join the Zoom link, which is just the kwroswelltraining.com, and get what you need, and keep it simple. If for some reason you're not on if you're not going to use Zoom, then if you're a part of the Roswell Keller Williams Facebook group and you just log on to that, then it's basically going live, and then you would get a chance to watch it being live streamed.
But you can't go back and watch it. I'm trying to like watch some old stuff.
Yeah, if you go to the page later, it's basically on the front. It's on the stream of the page, so it's a video that you can go back and watch.
So you just have to like scroll back forever, or is there a way to search?
I mean, if you want to watch a video from 2 weeks ago, then yeah, you would scroll back. But if it's today's video and you're watching it this weekend, it's you're scrolling probably a couple comments. Okay.
All right.
All right. Next thing is I sent out the schedule for next week. We're not going to meet, obviously, or I shouldn't say obviously, but we're not going to meet on Christmas Eve, Thursday, and we're not going to meet on Christmas Day, Friday. Just want to give everyone a heads up on that. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about, the class, Kern's contracts class is 10:30 to 11:30. In summary, I know that some of the people are relatively new here, but if it is a PC program, it is on this link. If it is a Georgia Legacy Group productivity thing, like the Scripps Day and the Expired Day and the High Accountability Group, there are specific links that I've sent out because they're run by different people in the weekly email. Okay. If it is an office training, then it is kwroswell.com. Okay. I'm sorry, kwroswelltraining.com. Okay.
I got a quick question. When you're on those trainings, when they ask questions, how do you ask questions? Because it seems like
if it's okay, so that's kind of the difference between whether you're on YouTube or not YouTube, I'm sorry, Facebook or Zoom. If you're in the Zoom room, then you could ask a question or type it into the chat. When it's being live streamed onto Facebook, it's a bit harder. Okay. Let's do a little bit of kind of recap on the buyer and seller pre-work, right? When you have a buyer, what do you do? When you have a seller, what do you do? Walk me through what you are still confused about. Let's try to make sure that everyone on the call today leaves knowing exactly what to do when they have an opportunity to work with a buyer, and exactly what to do when they have an opportunity to work with a seller from a preparation standpoint. Okay. Let me show you, while you're thinking that through, I'm going to show you one thing in the Google Drive that is another resource for you. As soon as my computer allows me to. Okay, so this is inside of the Google Drive. Okay, remember just PC. There's a folder called checklists. Okay, here is a seller checklist and a buyer checklist. Okay, so this walks you through the entire. I mean, this is just the one that myself and Pam and Luth created, where it's basically and there's videos that we've gone through line by line of this in the past, but it's basically the action step. You put the address here, the action step here. Did I do it? Yes or no? What date did I do it? And is there any notes? And this was a document that we had for every file. So if it was a seller, we had this document. If it was a buyer, we had this document. And it was a shared doc. And basically everything that was in regular font was something that the agent did. I would typically do, or Pam would typically do, right? Everything that was in bold was something my assistant would do. Okay, and then each morning we did a quick little review of, okay, 123 Hill Street, this is the next thing we need to be working on. 234 Hill Street, this is the next thing we need to be working on. Okay, you spend the morning checking in on that, I'll spend the morning checking in on that, let's chat again at lunch, right? So it was like a morning huddle for our team. And for those that are, I think everyone here is essentially a solo agent, you got all the jobs, right? So sometimes you got to be the real estate agent, and sometimes you got to be the real estate agent's assistant. My recommendation is you spend the work day, or as much of it as possible, being the real estate agent, and you tend to the administrative needs and marketing needs of your business when it would be rude for you to call people in your pajamas, maybe. Make sense? Because you got a number of jobs. You're the buyer's agent, the listing agent, the showing agent, the bookkeeper, the contract to close, the listing manager, the transaction coordinator, inside sales, outside sales, bookkeeper, etc. Okay, and you know why? Because you're a business owner, right? And the goal is to, I think the goal is to get to a stage where you are specifically focused on the tasks of the agent that you love. And you provide an opportunity for somebody else to specifically focus on the tasks of a real estate agent that you don't love. Make sense? Okay, so with all that said, walk me through a little bit. Is there any confusion on anything that we went over yesterday or the day before in terms of getting from the, I think I might be a seller or I think I might be a buyer, until we start working through this checklist?
All right. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Ty.
Hey, Bill. So it's really not any confusion. I'm just not, well, I guess I could be considered confusion. I do have a seller / buyer.
Okay.
That is very specific about what she wants, where they want to go. I mean, the whole nine. And then, but she doesn't want to move until February, which isn't too far from now. So I'm not going to push it.
Well, February, I mean, there's no limit. There's nothing of concern there. If they go under contract now, it wouldn't be unreasonable to close at the beginning of February.
Okay.
Or
So
the end of January or something. I mean, you're looking at 30 to 45 days generally, or 30 to 35 days maybe. Pushing it another week or so I don't think is out of the ordinary.
Okay, I guess that's what I was going to ask. Like, when should I push for the meeting, the whole consultation, the seller's consultation?
Good.
Because it's not that far away, but it's not tomorrow either.
Okay, great question. So I'm going to encourage you to do the moment you feel that a meeting is necessary, I want you to go for the meeting. Okay, remember, this is a great script. Everyone can memorize this. I'm confident in you. Hey, sounds like we should meet. Great. Sounds like we should meet. How interesting. Sounds like we should meet. That sounds like a lot of fun. Sounds like we should meet. Does that make sense? Because when you are not in everything that happens prior to you having a professional consultation with a prospect, you are allowing that prospect to be captured by some other agent. And I know that in the depths of your heart, you want to believe that these people love you and trust you and will work with you without fail. It's not always true. Okay. It's not always true. So they will work with sometimes whoever approaches them the millisecond they say they're ready, or they will approach the person that you never expected them to work with. Okay. So as soon as you humanly possibly can, you want to have a presentation with them or a consultation with them. So that I would venture to say that it can't be too early. It can't be too
Okay.
early, particularly in your situation, Ty, because there's a lot to go over with a buyer also being a seller. Okay, can you sell without, or can you buy without selling? And, you know, do we need to do any renovations to the house? I would hustle and get that appointment as fast as you can.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. All right. Who else has a thought or a question or something that wasn't perfectly clear? Okay, let's pretend, I want you to pretend for a moment that you are having a conversation with a prospect and they start showing signs of being a buyer or showing signs of being a seller. Does everyone on this call believe they know exactly what to do to take that to an appointment and begin to put them through the process?
No,
Okay, do you have any specific questions?
no, I just don't understand the specific process.
Okay. All right, let me put that on hold for 1 second and see if there, let me see how I can weave that into answering some other people's questions. What else are we struggling with right now?
So Bill, for me personally, I just need like a 1, 2, 3. Step 1, step 2, step 3 for both sides.
All right, let me see if I can pull that off. Okay. Let's start with sellers. Okay. Step 1 is to get an appointment. Okay. The most appropriate way to get an appointment is to ask them the pre-qualification questions so that you can prepare properly for that appointment. Okay. Now, everyone should have a copy of the seller pre-qualifications. They are in the Google Drive. They've been attached to probably 9 out of 10 weekly emails that I've sent since this program began. Okay. These are the seller pre-qualification questions that are essentially working to determine if this is a realistic client and somebody that you do want to invest your time with. And you also get a chance to gauge their motivations, their desires, their goals, their hesitations, what they're excited about, et cetera. Okay. So we want to have that form or that intake sheet in front of us at all times. So the second we get an opportunity to transition that conversation to those questions, you're able to pull that off. Okay. First step is that. The second step, it may be more than 3 steps. Okay. The second step is the actual appointment. Okay. What we're assuming here is that you have an awareness of the market, right? So if, let's say this is somebody that owns a 3-bedroom townhome in Dunwoody. Okay. You look up their address, you look up their community, and you are now tasked with becoming an expert for that property. So for example, let's say you look up the neighborhood that it's in and the sales are between 400 and 450. Okay. So I would go into Dunwoody and I would look for everything between 350 and 500 and say, I'm going to figure out this market today, right now. Okay. And you go in and you see, okay, well, how old are these places? How new are these places? Let me learn what I can about the communities. Is there, some antennas? Is there a gate? Is there a gym facility? I'm going to learn about, if I've got 400 or I've got 450 or whatever, and I want a townhome in Dunwoody, what can I look at, right? What am I likely to find? Okay. If you are brand new and you've not been in any of these houses before, I would recommend you go and spending time every week, not when you get a client. Every week, you should be intentional about learning something about the marketplace, right? So if you don't know Dunwoody, or you don't know Roswell, or you don't know Sandy Springs, or you don't know Woodstock, or whatever areas you want to work in, then say to yourself today or this week, I'm going to go figure out what real estate in Woodstock's all about. I'm going to go look at homes between 100 and 200, probably not going to find much, right? 200 and 300, 300 and 400, 500 and 600. And you're learning the inventory, right? You're learning the inventory. The thought that just popped into my mind is, I don't know if you guys have ever read the autobiography of Steve Jobs, but it's brilliant. Okay. One of the things that he talks about in there is that they had to create the Apple Store so that they could actually sell their product. Because if they couldn't rely on the salesman at Best Buy to differentiate between a $2,500 computer and an $800 computer. You see what I'm saying? So those people weren't, in Steve Jobs' opinion, they didn't know their product enough. They weren't creative enough. They weren't intentional enough to explain why this computer was 3 times the price. So they had to create their own store and hire people that they specifically trained. Does that make sense? So you've got to know your product. Okay, so let's assume, for example, that you are intentional every single day or week about learning your product. Okay, so if you want to sell in the luxury market, if you want to sell in whatever city it is, whatever school district it is, go learn about the neighborhood, right? If you've not been, let's say, I mean, one of the biggest neighborhoods in Roswell is Martin's Landing. If you don't know where it is or how big it is or, you know, what the houses look like there, go see it, right? It's not that crazy to think of. Give me 2 seconds. Okay. The next thing we do is we go on the appointment. Okay. Last week, we did a video on the seller's listing presentation, and I also included a copy of the Command Designs tab, and I'll have Sam walk you through that today from 12 to 1, where you can edit the template, okay, and you can create your presentation. My advice to you is the presentation is largely asking questions. It is not you sit there and let me thumb through this 80-page presentation while I hope to God you don't fall asleep on me or just walk out of the room. Okay. So the goal is, I saw that, John. Thank you. Okay, next is, what promises are we making, right? Are there any vendors that need to be involved in this? Do they need a painter? Do they need a carpet person? Do they need a landscaper? Do they need a stager, right? So meanwhile, part of your job is to orchestrate all of the experiences that your client is going to be involved in, right? So if they need access or a connection or an introduction to any of these professionals, that is your job, because you want a property, ideally, that shows like a 10, right? Because if it shows like a 10, it'll get a 10 price. If it shows like a 4, it's going to get a 1 price. Does that make sense? So we want to get the home into ideal showing condition. Okay.
I was going to say, a good way to develop your list of vendors is just go to the Georgia Legacy Group Facebook page and search on plumber, electrician, HVAC, you know, any of those vendors you might need, and you'll see many, many times it's been asked and answered for recommendations.
Yeah. Yes. Great idea, Pam. Thank you for adding that. Okay. And then the next step is, of course, the paperwork. Okay. So when you're dealing with sellers, the primary paperwork is the listing agreement, which we're going to talk about next week, although we've done a number of videos on it. If you would like to watch those over the weekend, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, next week we're going to touch on both the buyer brokerage agreement and the listing agreement. Okay. So the listing agreement, and there's videos on line by line, what it means and what to put in the line. Okay. And the disclosure statements. So the community association disclosure, if it's part of an HOA, the seller's property disclosure statement, and if the home was built prior to 1978, the lead-based paint disclosure statement. Okay. There's also in the listing agreement and in the buyer brokerage agreement, there is a part towards the end of that agreement that basically says, I have shared the following brochures with people. Okay. So the general ones that you're going to share are the ABCs of agency, how to protect yourself when buying a home, if you're buying, or selling a home when you're selling. If the home has an HOA, there's a brochure there. And then there's stuff on like radon and lead-based paint. I would typically include those as, brochures that you would share. Okay. And then you just begin the process. So the process would be getting the pictures taken, getting them edited, taking notes on the property as you're walking through. In the Google Drive, there's another document called the dual entry. What is it called, John? I know you've used it before.
Dual entry forms, you mean?
Yeah, dual dual entry forms. Okay, there's a folder and it has it attached as condos and townhomes and detached as single family properties. So I recommend taking this to your listing appointments, because as you're walking through the house, you can check off things like where's the attic steps, and does the neighborhood have a lighting, and does the neighborhood have sidewalks, and does the, you know, how many bedrooms are on each level, how many baths are on each level, does it have crown molding, right? Where is the what's the question that I never remember to look? You know, what direction the home faces, whether they have a gas connection in the laundry room, all that kind of stuff. So look through that dual entry form, because the answer to all those questions will be expected of you when you're putting the listing in the system.
Excuse me, Bill?
Yeah.
It's not an important question, of course, but why do they call them dual entry forms?
Because there used to be a system, well, there still is, it's just, it seems like there's easier ways to do it now. That basically that form was a combination of all the questions for Georgia MLS and FMLS. So once you filled that out, that gave if it was you or whoever was putting your listing in for you, could make sure that all the appropriate questions were answered, and both systems could take the listing. Okay, so we get the home ready for sale. Remember, you got to have a lockbox. If you do not have lock boxes, you could go on Georgia Legacy or Facebook group or Roswell's Facebook group and let them know you're trying to buy lock boxes, or you can buy them from the Superstore. Okay. Let's see. Hopefully it goes without saying that everyone in this room has lockbox access on their phone. So if you do not, that is the very next real estate task you need to do. Okay. We need to get you access so that you can use your telephone and the Super app to open lock boxes and show property. Okay, if you don't know what I'm talking about, go to Supra, search for FMLS Supra, and there's a few offices around town that you could go into. Okay. Now that basically gets the process started, and of course you need to sign too. Okay, I'm going to tell you that when you prepare for a seller or when you prepare for a buyer, you have a different attitude about the process. Okay. So if, for example, you intend to ever take a listing, go ahead and buy a sign and a lockbox. Okay. If you intend to ever work with a buyer, study the buyer presentation, right? Study the questions that you want to ask a buyer, because you'll feel more prepared, and your mind will not prevent you from taking the next steps. If you don't have a sign ready to roll, then you may get afraid to get on the telephone. Okay. What I mean by that is I used to buy an extra sign and I'd put it right when it would face me as I was pulling my car into the driveway. And basically every day when I was coming home, if that sign was sitting there, I was like, the hell is it doing there? Ain't gonna get me any business there. It needs to be in somebody's yard. And I'd go make another phone call or two, right? Or I'd go make another round to follow up with somebody, because I knew that signs are not meant to be put in garages of my house. Signs are meant to be put in front yards of my prospects and my clients. Does that make sense?
And there are rules about your sign, so how it's designed and such. So make sure you follow up with, is it Lucy that does that?
Lucy is in charge of all sign approval.
Lucy did it for me. Yep.
Okay. So with that said, is there any remaining questions on the seller side? Okay, real quickly, let me talk about the buyer side. Again, this will be recorded. If you need to hop off, that's fine. Okay, or this is being recorded. On the buyer side, you got questions for the buyer as well. Okay, and again, as soon as you humanly can, I want you to get in front of them and make a presentation to them. Okay, two of the primary things that I find to be really important to include in a buyer presentation, or at the very least on the phone, and as quickly as you possibly can, is the vast majority of the public does not understand buyer's agency. And they have a confusion around who's the listing agent? What's the difference between a listing agent and a listing broker? Can I see that home if it's listed by Coldwell Banker, if my agent's at Keller Williams? There's just a lot of fuzziness there. So I would always say two primary things as soon as I possibly can. Number one, working with a professional buyer's agent is free. Okay. You are going to be compensated, or I will be compensated, I'm sorry, as your agent, right? Even if they haven't signed anything, I'm speaking as if I've already got the deal, right? Assumptive language. So I would ultimately be compensated by the owner of the home that you pursue. Okay. Now, let me add on to that. That means a couple of things. Number one is you don't have to pay me. Okay, which is great. Secondly, what it means is any property that you or I find, whether we're driving around or an open house or a new home community or on the internet, is a home that I can help you pursue. So it doesn't matter who the listing agent is. It doesn't matter who the listing broker is. Okay, they have agreed to pay a commission. And so that's something you don't have to worry about. Now, the other cool part about that is it doesn't make really a difference whether you buy house number 1 or house number 4, because I'll ultimately be paid. So my job is to help you find the home that makes the most sense for you, right? That's the best match for you. So generally, when we're looking at homes, I'm going to be pointing out the things that are concerning rather than the things that you can already identify because you are a human. Like, I don't have to walk you through the home and say, this is the kitchen, right? You like already got that figured out, okay? But you might not realize that you're in a home with synthetic stucco, or you might not realize that there's a bunch of wood rot, or you might not realize that there is water stainage on the ceilings and stuff like that, right? So naturally what's happening is the buyer is starting to feel like you're going to be more of a consultant than a salesman. And you're going to protect them because it's in your best interest to protect them as well as their best interest. Okay, so let me recap. There is no cost to working with me. I'm ultimately compensated by the seller. So I don't have to be a salesman for you. I can play the role of a consultant. Okay, and any property that you find, no matter where you find it, is a home that you can call me on and I can help you pursue, and it's a home that I can get you into right away. Do you have any questions on that? And they'll say no. Great. So now they're going to be off looking, doing whatever they do, right? Because we have multiple clients and they only are trying to buy one house generally. So that's why oftentimes they're the ones that find the home. So you want to let them know that that could happen. Look, I'm sure you're going to be looking on your own. Don't be surprised if you find the home. Just when you find it, call me and I'll get all the answers you need and we can go see it right away. Okay. And so I want to get those 2 points across. That way they don't just call the guy whose name's on the sign, because those agents, a listing agent is basically trained to prepare or protect their seller. And so if it's in their seller's best interest, then they don't really care about protecting the buyer. Not that they're trying to do anything malicious. It's just that they're going to ask questions like, what's your, ready? What's your timing, all these kind of things. And when you let a unrepresented or unsophisticated client talk, they usually say the stupid stuff, right? That's why you don't want the listing agent, or you don't want the sellers at the home when the buyers come through, right? I don't even want you in the front yard waiting for them to leave. Get out of there, okay? Oh, we'll include all that. Yeah, no problem. You're going to say something stupid. Just get them out of the way. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. And then you got to go back to it. It's also a discussion on promises. Okay. So what does a buyer want? They want to know, what can I afford? How much is that going to be per month? And based on where I want to live and my criteria, show me the homes that match what I'm asking for. Okay, so that's going to require a little mastery of the neighborhoods as well, or a mastery of the market, right? So if you've got a buyer that wants to buy a $450,000 home in Cumming, okay, you better go learn Cumming. Okay, there's no way around it. You got to learn the inventory. Okay, if you got a person that wants to buy a $300,000, or probably more than that now, $400,000 home in Buckhead, a condo, you better go learn the condo buildings in Buckhead. There's no way around it. This is your job. That's the inventory. Okay, you have a lockbox key. You can go in there for free and in and out of every single unit. Okay, meet the concierge. See what the gyms look like, right? Understand how to park. See where the swimming pool is, right? see where the fire pit is on the roof, right? Our job is to understand the inventory, all right? And then because you don't want to get, you know, you don't want somebody to say, oh, hey, Bill, send me a list of all the homes that are less than 5 years old in the city of Alpharetta with 5 bedrooms and a finished basement under 275. And you're like, oh yeah, okay, great. I'll have that list for you right away. And then you get back to the computer and you realize that hasn't existed since 1998. And you're like, oh my gosh, I look like a fool, right? And so we want to make sure that we have a generalized understanding of what the market is in the areas that we would expect to work. Now,
Open the windows.
As a quick note, like there are some areas that aren't that far from here that I've lived here almost my whole life, and I've never been to Snellville one time, and I'm not planning on going. Okay, so if you're a seller in Snellville, you're gonna have to work with a different agent. Now I'll connect you with them. I got several agents out there, but it ain't gonna be me. Okay, because I can't look a seller or a buyer in the face and say, yeah, the things are trending really well around here. You know, this business is coming in and this school is being built. I don't know any of that stuff. And I don't have the bandwidth to go learn it. Okay, you're too far away from me. Somebody else is working that. Make sense? But if somebody wants to do something in Sandy Springs, I could probably tell you street by street what's going on in Sandy Springs. Okay. Make sense? All right.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So when you say, you know, how you know Sandy Springs, so is it good to just pick a market that you want to be an expert in?
If not several markets, yes. And
Okay.
then you are studying what's going on in those areas, possibly every day, right? There's something called the hot sheets where it's basically a form on FMLS on the homepage where you can set up alerts for, hey, every home that's listed in Roswell between $300,000 and $600,000, I want an alert every time something lists. So I get an email, I get a ping that says, Martin's Landing. Okay, it's on 7 branches or whatever. Okay, this one's over off of House Road. Got it. I understand the market, right? So if you've got a buyer that's looking, let's say, for a 4-bed home in Roswell at $450 or something, set yourself up on the same alert you set them on. Because when they call you and say, hey, did you see the new one that came on? You're like, I just got out of bed. They're gonna be like, you're fired.
Right.
Make sense? And they should
Yes.
fire you, by the way. Okay.
Okay.
All right, guys. Look, this isn't the last time we'll talk about this stuff. I totally get it. If you have any questions, you know, you can reach out to me directly. You can pop them in the help room. We are here to help. You got a group of over 60 people that are most likely experiencing similar things. So keep up the good work. I'm super proud of you guys. And I will see you at 12 o'clock.